Welcome to the Embodied Business Show. I am so excited. I'm here with my mentor, Genevieve Rackham, today. And for those of you who have heard me bang on about her work, she's incredible. And I'm really excited to have this conversation today because since I've been working with her, so much has up leveled in my world around money energetics, around how I hold myself in my leadership, all different kinds of things. And the reason why I wanted, well, firstly, why I hired her, but also why I wanted to bring her in on this conversation is because I believe there's a different depth when someone's gone from one side of poverty through to the other side of just massive amounts of wealth and living a lifestyle that feels totally aligned to their deepest desires. So welcome, Genevieve. I'm so excited to have you here.
Hi, yay, I'm happy to be here. I'm like, so good. Okay, I'm excited.
Embodied business. Yeah. I'm like, we're both playing in this energy of like, where are we going to go today? Like, what's going to happen here? But yeah, like this conversation for me is really, really potent because, you know, I remember when I first started working with you, the thing that got me was like, when I'd heard your story of like, you know, you'd been through it, you'd had moments where you slept in your car, you'd suffered like severe traumatic experiences and those sorts of things. And I was like, oh, finally a woman who's gone to the depths of where I've gone. Because I'd seen a lot of people who had a lot of wealth, who had a lot of, you know, great things happen in their business, but I hadn't seen them come from like a real dark place, like a real place where they're like, I've got nothing. And to change my mindset now feels like it's completely changing the entire being of who I was. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what do you think is the most important thing for people when they're in that space to start to up level energetically? Where does this process start?
You know, I think there's a big part of when you're in what feels like the worst case scenario and you're in because I mean, for me, it started with like lack and scarcity. That was a huge program and pattern for me. And it boiled down to a sense of not feeling safe and not feeling worthy. And I remember how hard it felt for me to just provide for my own basic needs. And something in that just made me feel like life was inherently against me, like life wasn't good. And it created so much desire in me to experience life differently and to feel supported and safe. And naturally that led me to look at my money. And because money is an avenue in which we self-actualize an aspect of who we are and also how we participate in life. And so allowing yourself to find a point of power in the lowest moment is where I think this journey begins. And I know for me, there was this one moment that I felt like I was trying so hard and I was working on changing my mindset and changing my beliefs and getting into a different energy. And it just felt like completely having to re-become myself and having to forget everything I knew up until that point and really go all in on what I wanted and really solidify my belief in alignment with that instead of my beliefs being in alignment with what I experienced and what I was experiencing at that time, which was a lot of inconsistency. You know, being able to feed myself continually at that time was really difficult. And there were times where I was actually talking to Kevin about this yesterday, and I was prescribed to Adderall at one point, and I was like, I stopped taking it because I was like, I don't need to be on this shit, like pharmaceutical. But there was a point where I was taking it purely just to have like an appetite suppressant so that I wasn't as hungry as often, so that I didn't have to worry about eating as much, which was, yeah. And so it was just like a really fucked up place to be in. Right. Yeah. But I knew that if I could find my power in that and I could build belief from there, I literally would be unfucking stoppable. And I did. So I had that moment. And I think this is where it starts for a lot of people. There might be like a bunch of compounded little moments, or there might just be like this one moment that's like kind of your line in the sand, and it's a fuck that shit moment. Maybe it's derived from a place of like anger or annoyance or frustration. or a place of, for me, it was feeling a deep, deep, deep sense of hopelessness and like really, truly emotionally feeling at the bottom of the barrel. And I was like, I can't get any lower than this. And so there must be, the only option is to go up.
Mm. It's interesting you say that. There's two parts I want to ask in this, because you said one thing of like money is how we self-actualize. So I want to go deeper on this one, but to not forget that point. But the thing is that I find really important, and this is where I got caught for a long time, right? It's like when you're in that process of learning how to embody wealth and how to be with more money and hold more money and all those sorts of things, we're taught from this, like, and obviously you don't teach this way, but a lot of people teach that when you are in lack, you can't change unless you come into abundance or you learn how to be with abundance. But it's like, what is the difference between being in abundance and learning personal power for those who can't quite break through from the two? Because one of the things that I often see in my clients is they're taught this program of like, once I'm abundant, then I can manifest from there. And it's like, well, hold on a second. We've got people who create, i.e. you, not everything from nothing. So what happens there? What's the difference in that?
Well, I feel like if we needed to get into abundance to have abundance, then so many people would never create abundance. So we're missing some steps, right? Yeah. And so I feel like, to me, the missing bridge between lack, like getting from lack to abundance, like the piece in the middle, was finding power. And power was this moment where I decided I was powerful no matter what, independent of my circumstances, independent of my finances, independent of money. Like, that's like, I did this reel the other day where I was like, the most powerful decision I ever made with money. And I did this in a few different ways. The first one was, money will never have power over me ever again. And so, because I found myself in a very low moment where I was just like trying, and some things would show up and then it just didn't last. I wasn't having a substantial forward progression in my life and in my finances. And there was just this wall I kept hitting against, like inside of myself. And it wasn't until I broke through that precipice that I was able to, because I found my power and I separated it completely from the conditions of my life. It was like, this is me. This is about me and nothing fucking else. And from here, I will make money. From here, I will become abundant. And not just make money to make money, but like truly embody the essence of abundance, which to me isn't just about having a lot of money, although that is a big part of it and that is a byproduct of it, but also like living in feeling safe, feeling supported, feeling free in myself, in my life, to do what I want, to self-actualize who I'm here to be, right? And there was just this pulling inside of me that was like, I know I'm supposed to be different. I'm supposed to feel differently. I'm supposed to like really do powerful shit for myself, for my life, and for other people. And like, I have to trust that and believe in that and back that, instead of this other shit that I'm giving too much of my energy to. And so therefore it's getting so much of a reaction from me emotionally. And then I keep cycling into that same pattern. So it wasn't until I was able to make that shift and that mentality shift from feeling helpless, not supported, whatever, and just really realizing like, I can be in the same exact set of circumstances and I can feel differently about it. And that's my launch pad forward.
I love that too. And you said something around like, money will not have power over me. And I know my personal journey, and I've shared this with you, and you know, I've had a really long journey with this one. It was like learning that money is not my God. Right. And like, how often do you see people like mistake divine for actual like money, and they put the power over there as opposed to like in something bigger?
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's these little ways, and I jokingly say, which I'm sure this is fine, but I always just like to double check. How do you feel about swearing on your podcast?
Oh, I'm ex-military. You can do whatever you need to do to get your message across.
I just need to double check just to be.
We are R-rated. It's okay.
R-rated. Yes, love it. So yeah, like something that I talk about a lot with money is like, don't be money's little bitch. Like, don't be your brain's bitch and don't be money's bitch. Like, and then I jokingly say like, money wants to be your beautiful bitch, right? And so it's to highlight a point that money is a byproduct energy, and so we shouldn't try and source from money. And when we do, that's when we have that. We're operating in distortion. So we're operating in non-truth. We're out of alignment fundamentally, right? We're seeking money, to make more money, to feel better about ourselves, to feel more worthy, to back our work more, all of these things, when actually that needs to come from us. And then when we stand in that fully and completely, unconditionally, non-circumstantially, then the money matches and the money flows accordingly and backs you up.
It's really cool, hey? And like I've shared this with you privately, but I remember I had this one moment a while ago where I was in an ayahuasca ceremony, and of all places, you know, as spiritual as we can go, right? But I had this really big thing. I was working through a lot of like my wounding around money and, you know, not feeling provided for, but I was putting it all on my partner, right? And then I had this one thing of like, it was like God speaking through me, and it was like, why are you looking for it in him? Like, it comes from me. Stop trying to put provision on other people, because it comes from me. And I know through your work and through like what you do, you speak of God and like, you know, working with source so much. And I'm curious, like, when you were in the depths, did you still have that connection, or was this something that you had to build?
I feel like I had it, but it was something that I had to be intentional about and with and to. And I just really sharpened my sense of, I guess, guidance and my sense of clarity and connection to that. And so anytime I started to subtly veer off track or disconnect or look for something from, like, source it from something that it wasn't supposed to be sourced from, right? Like, you know, when you were like, God told me, it's like, yes, Sky Daddy, okay, I'm listening. But I feel like it's like sourcing it from where it actually is supposed to be sourced from, which is the source, right? And then allowing it to flow through. And I feel like when we're lacking the receivership of what we desire from the avenues in which we desire to receive it through, it's often because there's a misalignment and like we're seeking it incorrectly or inappropriately. And meaning there's a sense of not being fully available for it and not being fully available to it and for it, because you're operating in a distorted state and where you're trying to source it from.
Yeah, totally. And look, I think, you know, in the time that I've been working with you for about 6 months now, or a bit longer. And I've watched you go through some really, really big life stuff. Like you've had, you know, Sebastian, your son, has, you know, had major heart surgery. Like there's been things that have been really big. And I've seen you stay in this, like, the cleanest fucking energy I think I've ever witnessed of when someone's in such a traumatic space. Like, you know, and I think every single mother listening to this would be like, holy shit, like how would I respond if my son was like in that kind of space? Because the whole time, I don't know how many times I said to Urbane, I was like, oh, I just want to know if he's okay. I can't imagine feeling like that. Like, you know, and like you are able to hold that containment and hold that like highest power so much. And like obviously you shared that there was moments you dipped into fear and all those sorts of things, but like how has that like brought you back online? Because I've noticed, like, you know, as a student of yours, like you've been sharper since. Like it's been like this like intensity that's come through. Like, and I don't think enough people talk about like what, like how stuff like that impacts us on a like a spiritual level, but how it opens our channel.
Yeah, you know, I think so to provide more context for people listening, my son, when was it, last month? Yeah, holy shit.
Yeah.
I was like, when did that happen?
Was it only that?
Wait, okay, it was in June. It was like the beginning of June.
Yeah. Okay. It felt like it was lifetimes ago. That's
I know, wow. It feels like 6 months ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
But my son Sebastian was born with a heart condition, and we knew he was supposed to have heart surgery, but then 5 days before his scheduled heart surgery, he got sick and then just went downhill very quickly. And it was just like a very sudden, unexpected experience. And then he went into like respiratory failure. We had to like, you know, ambulance, life flight, like all the things, and then basically just keep him safe and comfortable until he was in a stable enough position to be able to have the heart surgery. So it was kind of like two things simultaneously of like navigating like we want him to have this surgery as soon as possible, but we also need, because he needs this to save his life, but also he's not in a position to be stable enough to go through the surgery and be okay. And so it was just kind of like this navigating these two things simultaneously. And then we found like the perfect moment, and then it was like, boom, into surgery. Right. But there was like a suspended feeling for 2 weeks. And it was like a pretty constant and continual feeling of just like feeling in this energy of being in between. And I'm sure we can, relate to any other mom listening to this right now, like the sense of responsibility and also vulnerability you can feel if something happens to your child or could happen to your child, and just the sense of just what that feels like, and then the initiation that it requires of you, right? And I was very much aware of these subtle energies as I stepped into motherhood, like these little ways where when Sebastian would be upset and I would be like, would I get dysregulated? And just these little ways where I had these little invitations to just walk my fucking shit, right? And just do it in motherhood. And so there were moments where it was like, it was obviously like a heightened experience, and it, as a result, derived a sharper level of my focus. And I think in that's that we're feeling since then. But there was, there were so many moments where I had like little mental choice points. Like I remember standing in the ER and just watching like 15 doctors surround his like little baby body, and just like there was a moment where I felt helpless, and it was a feeling of just like, I want to comfort him, but I can't even touch him right now because I'll get in the way. And right now, and he's so upset, he's scared, he's uncomfortable. Like they're not trying to make him comfortable right now. And they're just like jabbing him with needles and just trying to get him whatever he needs so that he can be alive. Like it's not about his comfort right now, it's about his survival. And so there was like awareness in my mind in that moment that was like, I can feel helpless and powerless, or I can just be aware of what this is. And I saw that there was so many ways I could go with it mentally, where it was like I could feel so like, oh my God, like I can't be there for him, I can't help him, I can't make him feel better, like helpless feeling. Or I could check out and just put like numb out and just be like, I'll get through it. Or I can just stay in the game. And it was like stay in the game with this level of care, focus, and intentionality, and not check out, but also not run away from what I'm feeling. Like I stayed very alive and aligned to what was happening in the moment, not just with him, but also within myself. And I feel like in that there were just these moments where I just felt so mentally sharp, and I just kept making the choice and making the decision to stay in. Because when you're navigating something challenging and difficult and even terrifying, I'm very aware of what it feels like to drop it out of my power and or go the other direction and just pull back, unplug, and numb out, and I was like, this, I'm not going to do. Like those options are still always available to me in anything, but who am I and what do I choose? And I feel like in that there was a level of, I get to hold the highest vision, hold the highest outcome, and be kind of like the light in the situation. And I really believe like we are so connected to our children. And, I really hear those what people say, like, you're like, you share kind of the same energy body as your kids up until they're like, they're the age of 5 or whatever. And so I was like, I'm like holding my field, like I'm holding my field in like a powerful experience to be a positive influence energetically. And that's all I can do. That's all I can do right now. And so there was a span of about 2 weeks of having to stay in that state, like every moment of every day, and not from a state of hypervigilance or, you know what I'm talking about? Like, right. Yeah. But from like, just like a sharpened focus of like, this is me like meeting life on the mat, you know what I mean? And like fully participating and fully showing up for it. That being said, there were moments, and I shared this as well when I was sharing my experience going through this, where I had moments where I'd be like, ooh, I feel dysregulated as fuck, because I started to lean that way. And I started to like, I got activated and I kind of spun out in that direction for a minute. Or like I'm feeling like I'm pulling back because my body, like I understand like how the nervous system works and operates, and my body is like, okay, we need to pace ourselves, so I need to feel numb for a minute. And so me not going into those states intentionally and on purpose, but knowing that I have the tools to be in this state of like clean, alive, aligned energy. And that feels like fully being present to what life actually is in this now moment. And I feel like in that, it's like, you're not resisting it. You're not trying to change it. You're just fully meeting it. And I feel like that's what power is. And, let's say that's a way to display it. And that's the way it shows up, your willingness to fully meet and participate in this life, in this now moment. And what does that look like? And then from there, leading the experience forward. And so, it didn't mean that I didn't have those moments, but it meant that I had the tools in those moments to come back to that.
And I find that so potent because, I've looked into this as well, like the energy body piece, and there's studies now, and don't quote me from where I found this, but I remember reading somewhere that it's like our child's nervous system is connected to ours until they're 7. And yeah, have you ever heard of like spinal flow chiropractic network?
I have now.
Yeah, well, I've been doing this recently, and shout out to Haley, she's amazing, my chiro that I've been working with. But like I've been a couple sessions in, and I've completely felt a whole shift in my nervous system. But the thing that's amazed me the most is whenever I've had a session, like, so I'll have a big release on the table and, it'll send the wave through my body. But my son becomes really dysregulated in that moment and needs me. And so the school, like, because he'll be at like school and they'll call me and be like, hey, are you far away? Because he's like, I can't console him right now. And the minute he sees me, he's just like, oh, thank God you're here. And I'm like, the only thing I can link it to is that. Because I'm like, he's not normally dysregulated. He's pretty he's one of the most grounded children I've seen. And like, it's just crazy when you look at it from that perspective.
Yeah.
To go deeper on this conversation though, because you've spoken and shared, and I've personally seen this in my life as well, like stepping into motherhood, like the amount of abundance and wealth that can be created through that portal. Like, I know I grew up with my mom. My mom had me at 17 and like just turned 17. So she had this, and I know that she was not doing this consciously in any way whatsoever. She's trying to protect me from being a young mum, right? But I always heard, make sure you live your life first, because once you have children, your life is over. And that was the phrase that I had. So I was like kind of scared, all the things. But now I know the complete opposite story, right? Like I've felt more abundance come in, more love, more expansion in every possible way. And I know that you brought in a similar space, like with yourself. Like, how have you used motherhood? Well, not used it, but how have you allowed it to open more up for you?
Well, at the end of the day, I fundamentally believe everything is either an excuse or a reason. And I felt that motherhood. Like, I remember when I was pregnant, right? And I just felt like you dance with a lot of people's like ideas of how you should operate and in motherhood, right? And there's like, oh, how are you going to operate as a business owner? Like, how are you prepare, like all blah, 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 all this fucking shit. And I was just like, noise, shut the fuck up. I'm going in, I'm going in with myself. I'm going into my guidance system. And I saw these subtle invitations. That's what they felt like. Like, here's an invitation. Do you accept? And I'd be like, no, thanks. So guys, where it's like, you're no longer sexual. And I was like, I feel like a sexual flirty person. Like, that's a part of my essence, which feels like just like open and sensual and playful, right? And there was like this little invitation that's like, you're pregnant and you're about to be a mom. You're no longer that. And I was like, no thanks, right?
It's like that societal, like historical coding that we have, right? That's it's. I remember feeling that as well. And I even had an argument with my partner. I was 7 months pregnant, and I was like, do you not find me attractive anymore? And he answered with my internal state, no, I don't. And that was like, you can imagine the bravery he would have had to tell that to a 7-month pregnant woman, but also like how much it actually cracked me wide open as opposed to shut me down because I lent into it. Right.
Yeah. You know, that's funny. I was actually talking to my sister about this yesterday, where I was like, men are really good at mirroring our energy, like so fully and completely. And it's you know, there is an effect and an impact. Like, cause I had like a Genevieve day yesterday, but I was just like out in the world and I was like doing my own thing. And like, I was just like, la da 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 da. And like, just like to be blunt, just like the kind of the energy that Ben would send me and stuff like that. And I was like, no thanks. And like, whatever. Like, I was like, it's so funny because, if you, like these subtle ways where you can be like, oh, like you kind of take yourself out energetically out of the world, or you go like, you look at your feet instead of look out around at the people and look at the world. Subtle ways where you like unplug because you feel you've decided you're undesirable for some reason, whether it was a societal expectation or whatever the fuck. And I just feel like I'm going to be 70, 80, 90 years old, and I'm still going to be like that sexy woman walking down the street, you know, because it's my energy and my essence. And that's like fundamentally the leading component. And sure, there are like attributes that I'm sure, you know, help or whatever. But like, I noticed like I could be like, when I was younger, when I was tuning into like my intentional work, like in the muse energetics that I talk about in my world, there was like a point where I could feel like I could be, you know, so the most beautiful I've ever looked. But if I feel unattractive, I'm just not having the same experience out in the world. And equally, if I'm, you know, in sweatpants, haven't washed my hair in a few days, and it probably could be brushed, and I go out into the world and I'm just feeling open and receptive, and beautiful because I'm not attaching it to these like little conditions. Like that's the experience I have and is mirrored back to me in the world, right? And yeah, I just found that it really does affect things. And so there were all these invitations that I've received, and I just remember thinking like, who did I always want to be in motherhood, and like what's my experience meant to be? And I had all of these like purging field moments before I found out I was pregnant, but I was actually pregnant. And, you know, certain relationships fell away in my life. And there was just like this energy of like taking a stand for myself in certain ways, calling shit out, like just being like, there was like a fire, like that was like it felt like a sword on fire that was like, whoosh, right? Like
the whole pregnancy portal, right? It's just like clean up. Like, yeah.
So these subtle little things, and then whatever. And it was like, some energy cleaning up in my business, and you know, these distorted relationships or relationships that are aligned but have subtle distortions. And it was like, clean it up. And then my own relationship with myself and the ways I had to clean that up. And, you know, how was I going to be in business? What was I going to make this mean with money and my body and whatever the fuck? And I just remembered like people had offered me these invitations of like, slow down in pregnancy. If you work during pregnancy, you're just like, I don't know, you're indoctrinated into the system too much or whatever. And I was like, that can be true sometimes if you're doing it when you don't want to do it, but you're doing it from the societal expectation or pressure, or you feel money pressure, or you feel like fear of missing out or being left behind or whatever. Like that for sure can be a distortion, but that is not the fundamental truth of the experience of pregnancy and stepping into motherhood. And I was like, what feels right for me? What do I want? Right. And so I was just very attuned to that, and just really completely like, don't get me wrong. I had my moment initially that was like, I could freak out right now and be scared. And then I was like, wait, Genevieve, you've done this with money, you've done this with business, you've done this in love, you've done this in so many fucking ways. What do we decide is going to happen for me? And then I just got super fucking available for other people's projections, invitations, whatever. And I was like, my experience. And so I just was like, God, I'm just such a hot, pregnant goddess. And then I was just like, my big ass belly that was like the size of a beach ball at one point. And I was just like playfully tapping it like a drum, and I was like, I'm so hot. Like whatever. And then just like the staying in that space, and then if I stepped out and being like, no, come home to this, like this is the truth. And like people being like, oh, like how are you gonna make sure you're ready for motherhood? And I was like, I'm already ready. Like how are you gonna make time for a kid? I was like, I already have time for a baby. Like or what are you going to set up in your business? I was like, my business is already set up. Like anything I'm doing right now, I was always going to do, you know, and sure, there's certain things that I could put into place to change things or whatever. But a lot of business owners, when they're like, I'm a mom or I'm going to be a mom, they just start fucking shit up in their business and they start making all these unaligned choices because they're operating in fear and they're operating in just misalignment. And so then they're not having that flow, and they're missing that flow state. And that flow state can actually be heightened exponentially in pregnancy. You're literally a portal in between worlds. Like you're like the season of the day of Halloween, like in your body, like for 10 months. you know? And so it's actually like a really powerful time. And so I just remembered like feeling like just like dancing and moving and just like being sexual while I had like this giant belly. And I was like, I'm not sexual just because I'm super pregnant or pregnant.
Yeah.
Mom, like this is who I am. And also I'm not slowing down because I don't fucking want to, but I'm not speeding up out of fear. There's a, like, I went like full psycho in certain ways in my business, in pregnancy, and also in motherhood. There was just like this clarity and this refinement, and this excitement that was coming through me. And I was like, I'm moving. And I even posted something. I posted something. I didn't tell anyone I was in labor because I just wanted to like protect the portal of like that time of bringing Sebastian into the world. So I didn't tell people until after, like the internet people.
Yeah.
And but I like while I was in labor, like I was like posting money reels and shit, and I was like, my work, and I was like, and my sister commented on it, was like, Genevieve, ha ha ha, because she knew I was in labor. Like I was like in between contractions, so I was like, whew, and I was like, yeah, I'm posting this reel. But it wasn't like, oh no, I need to post this reel. It was like, my work.
What though? That was actually one of the things that attracted me to you, because I didn't see your energy drop. I'd been following you for like a year, and I was like, oh, she's pregnant. I'll give her some space and see how this goes. Because like I've seen a lot of people come and go when they've had kids, and it's not that it's a bad thing. It's just their values have changed, or, you know, they've redirected their energy or whatever. And I was like, I really like what you do, but I'm like, is she going to be here? And I was like, oh, she's coming strong,er like, and this is more potent. And like, I was just like, yes. And I think Sebastian was like maybe just born when I was like, all right, let's fucking go. Like, you're still here, like, you know. And I think it's so important. Like I had a moment even, it was like 3 or 4 days ago, I took my son to get a haircut. And this guy looked at me, because I'm just in my own little world, like playing with my son. This guy's looked at me and winked. And I was like, I instantly like got creep vibes and shut down. And I watched my body collapse. And I was like, hold on a second. Dignity, Casey. Like, it's okay to be your playful self, and you don't have to take it on from that person. Thank you, but no thank you. Like, and it was just interesting watching how I instantly, like, in my mind was like, I'm a mum. You don't wink at me. And then I was like, hold on a second. Like, you know, and I had to catch that moment. And it's like, I feel like, you know, when I'm in my play, when I'm in my fun, when I'm in that flirtatious energy, it doesn't even like normally register that there's other people that you're attracting in, because you're just so in your own little space and like fun and play. And I think that's what, like, when we let our kids see that and they grow up experiencing a woman in that essence and in that energy, they then learn how to be with that as well. Right. Mm-hmm. And like, I really want to actually go here. This was not where I intended this conversation to go, but I think it's really fun because, you know, you and I have also navigated this in my personal relationship where, like, I've had episodes of martyrdom that's come in, and, you know, I've had to clean it up and, you know, allowing myself to really fully express openly. And like, I'm super open, but it's like, can I be open and still playful? Like, that's been a lot of my work of like, can I still be in receivership when I am like being completely like just surrendered, giving like no fucks, and holding that space of like, just, this is where I'm at right now, and like playful. Like, and I think when we were like navigating that a couple months back, it was like this energy of like, I was almost pushed up against the wall of like, there was nowhere to turn other than we're either out or we're like all the way in here. And I know that you like had moments in your life where you've sort of navigated that same similar thing, like not so much recently, but like previously. Like, when women are in this space of they're realizing that, holy shit, I don't have that bit turned on. And that's what's fucking my whole life up. Because that was like that moment for me. Like, it was just like, I'm getting it reflected from you, getting Preston and Lexi be like, where's your playful energy? Like, what's all this happening? Like, I'm having all my like mentors and people that are like really holding that mirror for me, being like, what's going on here? Right? Mm-hmm. When you had those moments for yourself, how did you pull yourself personally out of it?
I don't know. Honestly, okay, this might sound dramatic. But if I'm out of that energy too long, I'll get sick and fucking die. Like, I'll just drop dead and keel over and just die. Like, okay, so I feel like there was a stepping into it experience that I had growing up that it was like developing, and it was like coming to life inside of me. And I just knew that was who I really was. And I like accepted that invitation, and just, you know, from myself and from like my deepest inner self, and then from life, I just found that that was how I existed naturally and innately. And it feels really fucking good to live in your natural and innate essence. Like there's a flow you experience with yourself, with life, with money, with your relationships. There's an ease, like you're just on track, you're on path, right place, right fucking time. And if I would veer off that even ever so slightly, I would be like, I'm dying. Like I'm
Still do that.
And so there's like, I couldn't be in it very long without getting really sick. Like honestly, like I had this pattern a few years ago in my business where I was subtly doing this a little bit, and it was a little bit of a pushy energy, and I wasn't super conscious to it at the time. But then I kind of like had this moment when I was like sick, and I was like, I'm getting sick like a few times a year. Like this doesn't feel aligned. And I realized it was a way for me to like pull out when I didn't like have freedom. And it was like, oh, like I don't see, I'm sick, like you know, like I can't. And I was like, where am I not owning my freedom and autonomy, right? Instead of like creating these like bypassing options of it, like I need to consciously own my desire. And so there was this moment of just like, I'm not admitting what I want, or I'm holding what I do want in the wrong way for me. And that would be versions of me not being in that energy. And then the invitation to come back was, I feel fucked up. And so I was like, I gotta own this shit. And there was like I feel like that's what it is. You come back when you're willing to fucking own what you want. Like, that's what it feels like. What I fucking want. What is my life for? How much money do I want to make? Oh, fuck, right? Like, what do I want my business to look like? Right? And like,
oh my God.
like be like,
Like, honestly though, like, and I walked through this recently. I got sick like the other week, and I'm literally having these conversations behind the scenes being like, fuck, I'm cleaning this so much shit up right now. And it's so true. So incredibly true. Now, the thing that I find interesting about when you start playing with this energy, some people can get really leaky with it in sexual ways, right? It's like when you don't know how to harmonize this kind of energy in your world, it can create super, super leaky sexual energy. And this is where a lot of women can attract shitty relationships, things like that going down, because they just don't have the discernment built in yet. And this is something that I often see with, you know, I have my clients, they're like, oh, I'm ready to go out in the world. My feminine's turned on. I'm feeling really, really good. And straight away they'll be like distracted with Bumble or distracted with a dating app, because they're like, now all my energy's in finding a partner and I just need a man. And they get in this like hyper-focused state and they lose that energy, right? And it becomes like leaky sexually. When you like, do you see that often in your space?
I actually do see that. That's actually really funny. This has been something I've been contemplating actually. I see that people, when you activate this energy, you automatically exist in a heightened state of magnetism. And so men come to you, women come to you, clients come to you. And then it's like life comes at you more, right? And then the discernment is what you yield through what's coming at you with to find what's aligned. And so it's, you know, to co-create healthy aligned partnership, healthy aligned client relationships, the healthy aligned ways that feel fuck yes to make money, right? Like instead of like taking the low hanging fruit, that's what it feels like. It's like, is this what I desire ultimately? And when you find that, that's what you double down on. Or if that hasn't come forward yet, you have to hold out for it. Otherwise, you'll find that when you accept the low hanging fruit, it's easier because you can see it and it's more convenient and it's there. And there's a sense of safety in that, where it's like, well, what if the next thing doesn't come? But then you're accepting things that stifle your energy or take your energy instead of add to it, right? And that's something we talk about like in Muse, like that dynamic of like, oh, I'm ready. And there's like, and then life starts coming at you if you lack that discernment or you haven't worked through your wounds, right? You'll find yourself in misaligned dynamics, or in aligned partnerships within, or sorry, you'll find yourself in misaligned partnerships or relationships or dynamics, and everything relational: money, partnership, friendship, clients, how you relate to life, everything's relational. So something, you'll find that you're existing within something that is out of alignment for you, or with something that is aligned, but operating in a fundamental misalignment in its dynamic. So in how you relate to life, you're operating misaligned, or how you relate to the aligned person, but you're operating in wounding instead of whatever, right? And so you're not able to, like, discernment to me isn't just my awareness for what's aligned and what isn't. It's also how I be aligned and how I don't, right? And so when there's a heightened sense of that, then it's like, I would have to hide in the deepest part of the ocean, covered by rocks, and have like 15 weighted blankets over my head and have them weighed down around me, and still life would find a way to bring me everything that I wanted, because it's like in that state of alignment, because discernment is how you maintain alignment. You find alignment, discernment's how you maintain it. Discernment's how you bring it to life. Discernment's how you sift it and sort it through yourself and through your experience of life and money and business and all the things, right? And from there, you can't not get what you want. And there's a feeling of like, if literally the tectonic plates had to shift in the fucking earth for me to have what I wanted, they would fucking do that. They would find a way. The ocean would spit me out. Like, something would happen, it's gonna happen. I'm gonna get what I want. You're in that state.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, right? Because like there's been so many moments where I've dipped out of it, like throughout my life, and I've snowballed, all the things have gone wrong, but the minute it's been turned on, it's just gone like boom, boom, boom. And like, even, we've had some huge conversations of different things that have come in my world in the last like 6 months. And it's like, when you start to really tap into that, like, it's not, the thing is, it doesn't just open the door that you're looking at, it opens all the ones that are not even like in your awareness yet, and the opportunity comes in. That discernment piece that you're talking about, right? I find this so interesting, because for me, it took a while for that discernment to turn on, because I was such a people pleaser, right? I was like, I had it, but I was scared to access it, right? And this is something I know, like inside the Money Game membership and things like that, I hear other women talking about it as well. It's like, well, what do I do here in this moment? It's like, well, this is either where you leap or where you like let go, or those sorts of things. Why do you think, like, apart from the obvious people pleaser that I've just explained, but what do you think the energetics are behind people not accessing that piece of discernment for themselves?
There's a fear of owning what you want because your relationship to desire is a little fucked up, or you're operating in fundamental misalignment with self. So you're playing in a distortion, whether it's a pain body for women, a pain body in the world, or just something like some kind of conditioning that's playing out, right? So you feel guilty for wanting, or you feel scarcity around what you want, or you feel unworthy, right? There's just some kind of distortion playing out. So it's like you operate in fundamental misalignment. And so we all have this discernment. It's just that we might not understand fully what it feels like because we're so habitually practiced in feeling unworthy. And so then when someone says, do you want this or this? You're so conditioned to pick the option that isn't what you want from that state of unworthiness. And then you're like, why is my life so fucked up? Why am I just hitting wall after wall? Why am I in resistance after resistance? And it's like, you are off. Like, you are disconnected from yourself, or disconnected from your clarity, your guidance, and that is your discernment, right? And so, yeah, I just feel like when we have these, when we're willing to, I feel like this is something in my work where it's like at the core of this, and I talk about this in my book, Sexy Money, because it's really about, it's about pleasure. It's about power. It's about owning what the fuck you want. And I feel like when you do that, when you operate in that level of connected to self, clear in desire, there's just a feeling of owning it, and realizing the fucking abundance and liberation and freedom and playfulness and enjoyment and ease and support that is available in that, right? Like, and then we all know this feeling where it's like, oh fuck, this is what I want, and then we just feel this energy take over, and we're like, this is what I want, right? It's because you're letting in the energy from life, because life wants you to have what you want, but you just wouldn't let that energy in because you didn't think you could have what you wanted. But that was never life. That was never money. That was never God. That was never love. That was just you.
And it's so interesting because so many people want to blame the world and their external circumstances and all these sorts of things, right? But it's like, in something that you say quite frequently is like, let life move through you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, when you don't have the capacity to let things come in, like, what would be a great check-in point for people listening to be like able to like just self-assess, become self-aware of like, am I allowing this, or am I like, the cock block in the road, like, essentially?
Yeah. So I feel like life is simple when I find my truth. And my truth is my genuine soul aligned desires, like my authentic desires, not distorted desires, which I speak to in like my body of work, where it's like, oh, I should want that, or blah, right? Like,
Yeah.
I should want that. I have something to prove, or that's not or maybe I do want that, but not right now, or not like that, not in that way. But it's like, what do I want? Like, and to me, this is where it's like, I waft away the smoke. Like, that's what it feels like. I always say that with this. I don't know why, but it's like when you blow out a candle and like all that thick cloud of smoke and you're like, so it feels like that is the lie. That is the bullshit. And it's around you. And you're like, I'm just like, which way's up, which way's down? I need to connect back to self. And so you just like, let it all go. Let go of the relationship mentally, like mentally for a minute, just let it all go. Let go of the business, let go of the decision, let go of figuring it out, let go, let go, let go, let go, let go. What's left? Me. What do I want? What do I actually motherfucking want? If I'm really honest with myself, if I'm owning it, if I'm not afraid to say yes, if I know that I can have what I want, if anything that I want is available to me, what is it? And then it's like, ooh. And then it's like that little voice. It's like, really? For me? I can have something, right? And it's like that, right? That I want that. That's what I want. And then when you find that, you focus on that, and you live from that embodied state of desire, where it's like you hold that in your body, you access flow state, and that's where you are in a co-creative experience with life. You are dancing fully with life, and life is fully dancing with you too, bitch, right? There's that flow. And so when you're not in that, when you're roadblock, cock block, right? Then there's an experience where you are probably operating in, like, you've just fucking disconnected from the ease. You've disconnected from and the ease is found in that clarity of self. And that clarity of self is just, fuck it all. Not what am I supposed to do? Not what needs to be done. Not what should I do? What should I want? How should this be going? Where should I be by now? How should. What do I want? Right here, right now.
It's interesting you say that too, because like, for me, when I've had periods where I've disconnected, then I've been in burnout, or I've been like not being able to get to that freely, like I've had to have the patience for it to come back in too. Like, I haven't just been able to, like, because I know I've had moments where I've been like, what do I want? And then I'd get frustrated. And it's like I'd compound that energy like even deeper of just being like, oh, I can't figure it out, like, and so what I would do in those moments, and what I've learned to do, is because like I have a tendency, like I'm a pure generator. I will, like, when I'm not like being self-aware and not like doing it, I'll like ride myself into the ground. I get to this point and then I'm like, like, and so it's that like refinement piece that I'm like, I still always navigate of just being like, okay, come back to self. What do I want? And the other day I was like sitting there and I was like, because it's that question. So, I think you gave it to me like a month ago, like, what's the desire here? Like, and I just sat there and I was like, you know what? Today I just want to like look over a mountain. Like, it can be something so simple like that, whereas a lot of people still disconnect from the simple truth of desire, as opposed to that should, like what you were saying. It's like, I should want a big house, a big car, all these things. And like, even to go on further, I remember when Urbane and I first got together, we were living together for like maybe 2 or 3 months. Obviously there was no children at this time. And we were just like, I was like hustling hard. Like, I was in like, let's go, let's create this, like, let's do the thing. And I remember one day I was like, oh no, I've got to do this for work. Like, I want to hit this goal and blah, blah, blah. And I can't remember exactly what I said at the time, but he was like, when will it be enough? And I turned around to him and I was like, do you fucking know who you're with? Like, and my ego was just like, raw, like, you know, and there was no energy of like, hold on a second, like it's not even about that. It was because I was challenging him like on like his desires unconsciously, and he didn't want to own it for himself of like what is his piece. And it was just this beautiful thing. And then like 2 years later, we're driving in the car and he's in a car in front of me because we're going to like drop the car off at like to get a service or something. And he's in the car in front of me and he calls me and he's like, I have an apology to make to you. And I'm like, what for? Like, I was so just like, okay. And he's like, I'll never forget that day when I said to you, when will it be enough? Because I feel like I shut you down in that moment. And I want to say, I'm so sorry because I feel like I disconnected you from your feminine and you get to have what you want. And when he said that, like, I didn't even know I needed that healing, but it was like this moment where I was just like, oh, it's okay to like be with desire. It was like this real, like it sunk into my body. And the more that I've like connected in with that feminine, the more I've realized that she's just the creation that's running through us, right? Like, and it's just so like, and you speak about this a lot, actually. It's just like that part of you that wants to play. And like in the analogy that you always use is like the clay of life, right? Like that's it. And it's like when we take ourselves out of the game, we're losing that. We're like disconnecting from those places. And so my question I have for you, because this is something I actually navigated with a lot of my clients just this week, right? And so one thing that I see in my world a lot with embodied business and with what we do, it's like, it's their inner child that's actually getting in the way of their desires. And so to say they want to do something really, really big in business, but this little girl is like, you know what? I can't do that. I don't have the skill set. I'm not creative enough. I don't know what I'm doing. And so then they're like, I don't know. And they sit in this land of like, I have no direction, essentially. Right. And so it's like, hey, we've got to go in, do the work around that and, you know, all the trauma work and all those sorts of things that happen there. But it's like, how often do you see like grown women operating from that archetype because they haven't allowed themselves to really connect in with that little girl, what she needs and desires?
Well, I feel like there's just, it's like that commitment to fundamentally reconnecting to yourself. And I feel like in that there's an inherent connection to your inner child. I feel like there's an inherent connection to the essence of creation flowing to you and through you fully. And it feels like it honors the child, it honors the teenager, it honors the young adult, it honors the maiden, the mother, and the crone inside every woman, right? Like inherently, I don't know. And I feel like in that there's a like something I used to do years ago. Like I found myself stalling out because I would be like, I don't know. And I kind of played this game with myself because I was like, I don't know what I want to do with this. And it was like something in my business or something with my life. It felt like something just important. And then I was like, I'm feeling this mental wall. What is this? And I was like, well, what do I want for dinner? And I was like, I don't know. And I was like, strawberries or blueberries? And I was like, I don't know. like so disconnected and so unclear. And I was like, this is a roadblock for me. And it's a way that I keep myself from moving forward, because then if I don't know, then I can't move forward. And it's like, it's a way to, I guess, not risk it. It's a way to not go for what I want and feel risk of failure, risk of disappointment, like risk of embarrassing myself or whatever, right? And I was like, this is a protection mechanism. And so who are we trying to protect? The child, right?
Yeah.
And then it's that decision to be like, I've got you, bitch, let's go, right? And so I was like, if I did know, then what? And it was like a way to bypass, because our brains are really creative. They're really good because they're our brains. They know us. They know how we think. They have our memories. They know what we've experienced. And so they're really good at getting us. And so anytime like I've had clients come to me and they're like fucking blocked up and they're like, I don't even know which way is up, which way is down, who I am, what I want, what's happening, what's going on, what's my name again? And and I'm like, good, you're smart then. Your brain's doing a good job. And then it's like, but then we can kind of find ways to work around it and just be a little like work with our mind, use it as a tool instead of be used by it or be our brain's little bitch, as I like to say sometimes playfully. It feels like, well, if I did know, then what? Or it feels like, okay, we don't have to believe that, but if I did believe it, then what? Like hypothetically, change your mind. I'm just saying, let's just play it out over here. Let's just think about it. Let's just what if, you know?
Like open it up. There's that little bit to possibility, right?
Yeah. I think I talked about this at the beginning of the Money Magic Challenge that I do in March. And I say, you don't have to believe me yet, but will you at least be open to the idea?
I remember hearing that.
Yeah. And I was like, but don't worry, me and the universe, we will squeak in those little cracky cracks that you have. You're just open to the idea that you will believe. You're just open to the idea that this could change your fucking life. That's all I need. I'll get in there. Don't worry.
So good. So good. Look, this links back again, right? It's like all those beliefs around motherhood, all those beliefs around money, all of this is like if you could believe, right? Like if it were possible. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've sort of experienced since coming in your world. It's like we don't have to make a certain number mean anything. Like that's one of the biggest takeaways I've had, whether it's $10, whether it's $100,000, whether it's whatever. It's like all of it just is. And it's how we relate to that is like whether or not there's a charge there, whether or not it's our work or not, right? And it's like one thing that I've really come back into is like being able to hold that neutrality regardless of. And I think that's what creates a little bit more abundance. And I'm curious to know your thoughts on this because, you know, the one thing that I always talk about is like, obviously we want to celebrate and we want to bring more into our world and we want to be able to be with that. But there's a level of like when people create this energy of like, this is not normal in my world. Like they celebrate to the point where they sabotage as well. Like they can push it away kind of because it's like, oh my God, I can't believe this just happened. Oh my God, this is not real. This doesn't belong to me. And like their linguistics will kind of like get in the way. Like, have you ever seen that kind of happen? Because I've seen it happen for myself personally. I've literally done that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most of my work comes from either me or my clients. So, you know? And so, you know, this reminds me of like, I know this is something we've talked about before too, but it's like, it counts, it all motherfucking counts.
It's like my favorite part of yours.
But it was like a mantra I created when I just felt blocked slightly from being like making more money. And it was just like this resistance that I had to being paid in full. By clients, and it was like anytime I would have like a few people pay in full, but mostly it was like payment plans. And I really liked that because payment plans felt like reoccurring revenue and it felt safer and it felt like it counted and it felt like, oh, well, this isn't just income for this month, it's income for the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever it was. Something about that just felt really secure to me. And it felt like in that security, it felt like it counted more. And like, I was like sitting with it and I was like, what is it? What is that saying? And I was like, it counts when it's reoccurring, but if it's a pay in full, then it doesn't count because it's only for 1 month. When I was like, what a way to belittle people and what a way to belittle money and what a way to belittle making a powerful fucking move like that. What the fuck?
Yeah.
And so then I was like, okay, I want to be available for pay in full people. And it wasn't about me because I actually didn't want it. So I was like, I love the payment plans. Let's keep people on the payment plans. But I was like, I want to be available for people because, and this was, I kind of started getting my hands in the clay with it. So I started paying in full for mentorship when previously I was like doing payment plans, which I think there's value in both. And, you know, there was a time when doing a lot of payment plans and paying for mentorship on a payment plan was really powerful for me because it was a way for me to calibrate to making that investment every month and having the money for it and having the money for it with ease. And it was like a monthly touch point, like a calibration, right? And that was really powerful. And there are times where that's really powerful. But then there were times where it was just like, I'm just doing the payment plan out of habit. And actually it feels really powerful for me to pay in full, like to pay for the 6 months to 12 months or whatever up front. And, when I did that, I just felt this something in my body that was like, holy shit, that was a powerful move. There was like something about like paying for it in 6 months up front or 12 months up front was a decision that the next 6 months was going to be amazing, was a decision that I was going all in for the next 12 months. Right. And it just felt like a really powerful, bold move. And I was like, me not wanting people to pay in full. And so therefore me blocking people paying in full is me blocking people from that, having that moment in my world. And I was like, that blows. And so I'm going to stop doing that right now. And I'm really going to I'm really going to honor the validity of everything. And the validity of everything was like, whether it's $1 or a penny I find on the fucking ground, or it's a $50,000 transaction, it counts, it all fucking counts. And I feel like in that, there was a level of it counts. There was a level of it matters. There was a level of it's all valid. There was a level of it's all sacred. And so in honoring that, it felt like someone could give me a penny, and I felt like they just gave me $1 million. I was like, all right. And I could really, and sometimes like if people paid for something of mine that was like $100 and that was a stretch for them, I could really truly meet them in that and be like, oh my God. Right. And like I stopped desensitizing myself in these other ways too. Right. So I got available for more and available for people to have powerful experiences in my world. And then I cleaned up this subtle numbing I was doing with certain parts of money.
I think that's a really good note to sort of like, maybe we'll start to close out just because I'm mindful of your time. But the desensitization of money, especially in our field, like the coaching industry and all those sorts of things, like there's a lot of people who have become so desensitized to people because of like, you know, the position that they're in or what they charge or anything like that. But it really does create a sense of like disconnection, I think, in humanity when we're in that realm and in that space. So I really love that you brought that through. How, like, do you see this a lot? Like, because I see that there's a lot of women who want really, really like bold, big cash flow, all the things, but they may not be there yet. But it's already like they're already desensitized to the current level that they're at. Does that make sense when I say that?
Yeah, I feel like the vibe that I practice is normalize, but don't desensitize. Because normalize, I feel like is like it's a level of like, oh, you're not being like, I don't know, you're not being like this $10,000 a month. The first time you do it is like so much, right? And then you do it again and again and again and again and again, and then you're like, ooh, this is normal. But then you don't go, ugh, whatever. Like once it crosses that line, I feel like that subtle desensitization of it creates a disconnect, which can veer into, and this is where we go into like what I talk about is like distorted desire, right? Where it's like you don't know what you want because you're disconnected. You don't know what you want with money because you're disconnected in how you're operating with money. You're numbed out, you know, like the jokes I always say is like, it's like, yeah, you can't feel your sensitivity because you're fucking cranking your vibrator up to level 11 every night and just burning your clit off, you know what I mean? You have no sensitivity. And so I'm like, we don't want that because we want the subtle from your partner to be like, oh, sorry. Right? Like, and so, yeah. And so I feel like that where it crosses that line, sorry, I'm burning your clit off. Okay. Where it crosses that line, where we start to feel like we're not appreciating it anymore. That's where it starts to desensitize, and that's where, because something can be normal and we can still appreciate it, you know. And so the money I make now used to be like it was shit my pants money back in the day, you know, and now it just feels so normal, but I'm so appreciative of it. Like I live in a very beautiful home, and like this was something that was on a vision board 5 years ago. You know what I mean? And it just feels really normal. And so I'm not like waking up every day and being like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I can't believe I live here. But I'm walking out and I'm like, this feels really normal. And I take the time to intentionally be here with it. Like, and that's something Kevin and I talk about, my husband, where I was like, we're not going to live here forever. And we're thinking about living somewhere else because we have a baby. And once he starts moving around, we don't want to be in the top floor penthouse apartment anymore. And I was like, but we have like a mountain view on this side, and then we have the city view on this side. And so we have like both, and it's really beautiful. And I never want to have a day where I walk past these windows and don't look out at that view just because I'm used to it, you know? And so like I have that moment where like I stop and I'm like, even though I see it every day, I love it. I love you. Thank you. This is beautiful. Because I know there will be a day where I'm not living here anymore. And I think back and I'm like, oh, that apartment, that time in my life, that was so nice. right?
That's the power of presence as well, right? Yeah.
I feel like we disconnect because we stop appreciating what has become normal. That's when we desensitize. And then that's when you feel like you need more, and you're operating in a desensitized place. And so it's like, it's not actually that you need to be choked and then punched in the face in order to come. It's that you just you just need to recalibrate a little bit, right? And so with that, there's a level of I can be with what is, appreciate it even though it feels normal. And then instead of going into desensitization mode, where then I start to veer into distorted desire, or like it's never enough, more, or entitlement even is a big thing that we see when people subtly veer into that, where it's like it's normal, but then you feel like you just like you're owed or whatever. And it's like you're not. Nothing is. Like your life, like today isn't owed to you. Like, every day truly is a fucking gift. Every moment is a gift. Every time you can take a breath is a gift. Every dollar, every client, every transaction, every person, every experience. And then I feel like when we really are meeting life like that, and it doesn't mean you're like, oh my gosh, oh my lamp, oh my gosh, that comb, right? Like all the time. But it means like you're truly like taking the time to, I guess, be present and to savor and operate in your truth, which feels like actually soul aligned desire, soul aligned truth, soul aligned life. And I feel like in that there's a level of just like, I know who I am, I know what I want, I know what I can have, and I know what's next, and then I create it.
I love that so much. So the one question I always finish out on with every single one of my guests is, if this was the last time that my audience were to ever hear you speak or ever hear you say something, what would be the thing that you would want them to remember or to hear?
I want you to remember, and we're here, if this is the last time you ever hear my sexy voice, life is supposed to be good. And not just life, your life. Your life is supposed to be good. Your life matters. You matter. You get to have what you want. You're here on purpose. You're here for a reason. Time to act like it. Time to accept it. Time to receive it. And time to honestly appreciate it. Time to appreciate it. Time to value it. And time to show up for it accordingly.
Beautiful. And how do people find you? Obviously, I'm going to put all the links to your world in the show notes, but what's the best way to contact you if they need to?
I hang out on Instagram mostly, but I'm also known to be on TikTok from time to time, and I sometimes hang out on Facebook too.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on here with me and spending this time. I've absolutely loved it.
Oh, so fun. So good. I love our magic together, per usual.
So good. So good. Alrighty, my loves. Go and follow this woman. Since I've come into your world, you know how much has shifted and changed. Like, we don't even need to go there, but let's just say my whole world has flipped on its head. And I am very, very grateful. So thank you for the work that you do and the magic that you bring in the world, because it's fucking needed so much.
I appreciate you, and that means so much.
Embodied.